I opened my mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon in Gilbert, Arizona, expecting the usual junk mail and bills, but instead found a petition calling for my family's eviction from our own home. The header read, "Petition for removal of undesirable residents" in bold capital letters, and beneath it were exactly 3 signatures. My hands trembled as I recognized the looping handwriting of Brenda Patterson, our HOA president, followed by 2 names that made me laugh despite my anger. Tyler Patterson, age 14, and Madison Patterson, age 11. Brenda's own kids. This whole mess started 6 months earlier when we moved into the Sunset Ridge community, a modest neighborhood of single-family homes with desert landscaping, and that southwestern adobe style that's everywhere in the Phoenix metro area. My wife Jennifer and I had saved for years to buy our 3-bedroom house, and our 2 sons, Marcus and Devin, were thrilled to finally have a backyard with a pool. The previous owners had maintained everything perfectly, and we planned to do the same. Brenda Patterson lived 3 houses down in a corner lot that gave her a clear view of most of the street. She was 47 years old with that specific haircut that became a meme, you know the one, asymmetrical and highlighted. Within a week of moving in, she appeared at our door with a binder. "Welcome to Sunset Ridge," she said, though her smile never reached her eyes. "I'm Brenda Patterson, HOA president. I wanted to personally deliver your copy of our community guidelines." The binder was 2 inches thick. I flipped through pages of rules about paint colors, acceptable lawn ornaments, parking regulations, and dozens of other restrictions that seemed designed to make life difficult. "This is pretty comprehensive," I said, trying to be diplomatic. "We maintain standards here," Brenda replied, her eyes scanning past me into our living room where boxes still lined the walls. "I noticed you have a basketball hoop in your driveway. That's actually not permitted according to Section 7, subsection 3. The previous owners had it installed," I explained. "It's bolted into the concrete. Nevertheless, it needs to be removed within 30 days. I'll be sending you a formal notice." She made a note on her phone. "Also, your trash bins need to be stored out of sight except on collection days. They're currently visible from the street." We had moved in 3 days ago. I had barely finished unpacking our kitchen. "Sure, I'll move them to the side yard this weekend," I said. "By Thursday, please. The guidelines are quite clear." Brenda's smile had vanished entirely. "I also noticed some toys in your front yard. All recreational items must be stored in the backyard or garage when not in use." Marcus's bike was lying on the grass where he had dropped it an hour earlier. Devin's soccer ball sat next to it. "They're kids," I said, feeling my jaw tighten. "They were just playing." "The rules apply to everyone, Mr. Harrison. We didn't invest in this community to watch property values decline because people can't follow simple guidelines." She handed me the binder. "I've highlighted the sections most relevant to new residents. I'll be conducting a property inspection in 2 weeks. Please ensure everything is in compliance." She walked away before I could respond, her heels clicking on our driveway with military precision. Jennifer came to the door as I stood there holding the binder. "Was that the HOA president?" "Yeah, we need to remove the basketball hoop, hide our trash cans, and apparently teach our kids that playing in their own front yard is forbidden." "You're kidding." I wish I was. Over the next 2 months, we received 14 violation notices from Brenda. Our lawn was 1/4 inch too tall. Our mailbox had a small rust spot that detracted from neighborhood aesthetics. We hung a hummingbird feeder that was deemed an unauthorized structure. Jennifer's car was parked 6 inches over the edge of our driveway, encroaching on the shared landscaping area. The list went on. Each violation came with a $50 fine that would escalate to $200 if not corrected within 7 days. We contested several through the proper channels, submitting written appeals to the HOA board, but Brenda was the board. Or rather, she had stacked it with her friends Carol and Deanne, who rubber-stamped every decision she made. The basketball hoop became a particular point of contention. I had researched the issue and found that it was installed by the previous owners 5 years ago before the current rules were implemented. According to Arizona law, we were grandfathered in. I presented this information at the monthly HOA meeting in July, which was held in the community center, a small building near the neighborhood entrance. About 20 residents attended, most of them older retirees who seemed content to let Brenda run things however she wanted. Mr. Harrison, the rules are the rules, Brenda said from her position at the front table flanked by Carol and Deanne. If we make exceptions, everyone will want one. It's not an exception. It's following actual property law, I said, standing with my printed documentation. The hoop predates the rule. It was legally installed. This is a private community with binding covenants. You agreed to follow our guidelines when you purchased your property. Brenda's voice had that condescending tone that made my blood pressure spike. I agreed to follow reasonable guidelines that don't contradict state law. Are you saying you refuse to comply? Her eyes narrowed. I'm saying you're asking me to destroy a permanent structure that was legally installed and that state law protects. Brenda smiled, and I immediately knew I had made a mistake. She wanted this confrontation. She fed on it. Let the record show that Mr. Harrison has stated his intention to remain in violation of community standards. The board will take appropriate action. She made a note on her laptop. Next item on the agenda. Wait, what appropriate action? I demanded. That's board business, Mr. Harrison. You'll be notified in writing. She dismissed me with a wave of her hand. Now, regarding the community newsletter, I left the meeting furious and confused about what just happened. Jennifer was waiting at home with the boys. How did it go? She asked, seeing my face. She basically threatened us without saying what the threat was. Can she actually do anything? It's our house. I don't know. I'm going to call a lawyer tomorrow. The lawyer, Richard Chen, specialized in HOA disputes and had an office in Mesa. I met with him the following week and explained the situation. Unfortunately, HOA boards have significant power in Arizona, Richard said, leaning back in his chair. They can place liens on your property, take you to court, and even initiate foreclosure proceedings in extreme cases. For a basketball hoop. For accumulated fines and violations, yes. If they claim you're in breach of your covenant agreement, they have legal mechanisms available. He reviewed the documents I had brought. However, you're right about the grandfathering issue. They can't force you to remove a structure that predates the rule, but they can make your life miserable in other ways. So what do? Document everything. Every interaction, every violation notice, every fine. Take photos with timestamps. If this escalates, you'll want a clear record showing harassment. He paused. Have they targeted other residents this way? I don't think so. Most people here have lived here for years. They know how to stay off her radar, or they've learned to comply immediately. These situations usually go one of two ways. The resident gives in and follows every rule to the letter, or it escalates into litigation. Litigation is expensive and time-consuming, even when you win. I left Richard's office feeling trapped. We had bought our dream home, but it came with a petty tyrant who seemed determined to make us miserable. The harassment intensified in August. Brenda started documenting violations daily, sometimes twice a day. Our recycling bin lid was open half an inch. Our front door wreath was not on the approved decoration list. We received a notice that our pool equipment was too loud, even though it ran on the same schedule as every other pool in the neighborhood. Another notice claimed our exterior paint was fading and needed to be refreshed, despite being identical to houses on either side of us. The fines accumulated. By mid-August, we owed the HOA over $2,000 in violation penalties. I refused to pay them, which Brenda noted in writing was further grounds for action. Our neighbors started avoiding us. I tried talking to Jim and Susan Rodriguez, who lived next door, but they were polite and distant. "We don't want any trouble," Jim said when I asked if they had problems with Brenda. "She can make life very difficult if she wants to. She already is making life difficult. Then maybe you should just do what she asks." Susan touched Jim's arm, clearly wanting to end the conversation. "We have to go. Good luck." Only one neighbor reached out to us. Frank Morrison lived at the end of the street in a house with an immaculate yard that looked like it belonged in a magazine. He was 68, retired from a career in civil engineering, and had lived in Sunset Ridge for 12 years. He knocked on our door one evening in late August. "Got a minute?" he asked. We sat on our back patio while the boys splashed in the pool. "I wanted to warn you," Frank said. "Brenda did this to another family about 4 years ago. The Johnsons. They had a teenage daughter who played violin. Brenda decided the music was too loud and started writing violations. It escalated until the Johnsons were so buried in fines they couldn't afford to fight anymore. They sold the house and moved. Why didn't anyone stop her? Most people here are retired and don't want drama. Brenda feeds on conflict. The more you fight, the harder she pushes." Frank sipped the iced tea Jennifer had brought out. "I'm telling you this because you seem like good people, and because I'm tired of watching her run this neighborhood like her personal fiefdom. So what do I do? I'm not sure yet. But I've started talking to other residents, quietly. There are at least a dozen families who are fed up with her but are too afraid to speak up. If we could organize, maybe present a united front at the next HOA election." He trailed off. "That's not until January, though. A lot can happen between now and then. She's already threatening some kind of action against us. She'll probably try to put a lien on your house or initiate a foreclosure proceeding. It's her favorite tactic. Even if she doesn't win in court, the legal fees alone can force people out." Frank set down his glass. "Keep fighting, but be smart about it. Document everything, and let me know if I can help." After Frank left, Jennifer and I sat in silence watching the boys play. This was supposed to be our fresh start, our reward for years of hard work and sacrifice. Instead, it was turning into a nightmare. "Maybe we should just sell," Jennifer said quietly, "and let her win. Let her force us out of our own home." I shook my head. "No, we're not running." The next violation notice arrived 3 days later. This one was different. It wasn't about trash cans or lawn height. It accused us of operating an illegal business from our home, specifically claiming that I was running a commercial automotive repair service. I worked as an IT consultant and did everything remotely from my home office. I had never repaired a car in my life. "This is insane," I said, showing Jennifer the notice. "Where would she even get this idea?" "She's making it up," Jennifer said. "She's just trying to find something that will stick." I called Richard Chen immediately. He reviewed the notice and sighed. "This is a serious accusation. Operating a commercial business in a residential zone violates most HOA covenants and can also violate city ordinances. She's escalating." "But I'm not operating any business. I work in IT. Can you prove that? Do you have employment documentation, tax returns, anything that shows what you actually do?" "Of course." "Good. Gather it all. You'll need to formally respond to this accusation and provide evidence." But here's the problem. She can claim she has witness statements or photographic evidence, and it becomes a he said she said situation. Richard paused. "Has anyone been coming to your house regularly?" "Delivery drivers, friends, family. Just normal stuff. Amazon deliveries my brother visits sometimes. Nothing unusual." She might claim those are customers. This is a common tactic. Make an accusation that's hard to disprove, then force the resident to defend themselves. His voice became more serious. "Mr. Harrison, I think you need to consider that she's building a case for legal action. This isn't just harassment anymore. She's creating a paper trail that makes you look like a problem resident who refuses to comply with multiple violations. So what's my move? We prepare for litigation. I'll draft a cease and desist letter demanding she stop the harassment and threatening a countersuit for abuse of authority. It might make her back off, or it might make her accelerate. Either way, you need to be ready. The cease and desist letter went out the following week. Brenda's response arrived within 48 hours, delivered by a process server at 7 in the morning. We were being sued by the Sunset Ridge HOA for breach of covenant, accumulated unpaid fines totaling $3,200, and violation of residential zoning regulations. They were seeking full payment, legal fees, and placement of a lien on our property. "This is unbelievable," Jennifer said, reading through the legal documents. "She's actually trying to take our house." "She's not going to win," I said, though I felt less confident than I sounded. "Richard said we have a strong defense. How much is this going to cost?" "Legal fees, court costs. I don't know, but we can't back down now." The lawsuit consumed our lives for the next 2 months. Richard filed our response, including documentation of Brenda's harassment pattern, evidence that the basketball hoop was grandfathered in, proof that I was not operating any commercial business, and a counterclaim for harassment and abuse of HOA authority. Meanwhile, life in the neighborhood became unbearable. Brenda watched our house constantly. She took photos of everything, our cars, our yard, our comings and goings. She filed new violations weekly. When we put up Halloween decorations in October, she issued a citation claiming they violated size restrictions. When a palm frond from the community landscaping blew into our yard, she fined us for improper yard waste disposal. The boys were miserable too. Other kids in the neighborhood stopped playing with them. Marcus came home from the bus stop one day and told us that Madison Patterson, Brenda's daughter, had said her mom was going to make us leave because we were bad people who didn't follow rules. "That's not true, buddy," I said, hugging him. "We're not bad people. Sometimes adults have disagreements and Mrs. Patterson is upset with us right now, but that doesn't mean you did anything wrong." "Can't we just do what she wants?" Marcus asked, "so everyone will be normal again?" How do you explain to a 12-year-old that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when it makes life harder? That giving in to unreasonable demands just empowers them to make more demands. "We're doing the right thing," Jennifer said. "Sometimes doing the right thing is hard, but it's still right." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for November 15th at the Maricopa County Superior Court. Richard felt confident about our case. "They have no evidence of a commercial business because there isn't one. The fines for the basketball hoop are legally unenforceable because of the grandfathering issue. Most of the other violations are so petty that any judge will see them for what they are, harassment." He reviewed his notes. "The challenge is that HOA cases are usually decided in favor of the HOA unless there's clear evidence of abuse. We have that evidence, but we need to present it perfectly." The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if the judge didn't see it our way? What if we lost and ended up owing even more money? What if we lost our house? Jennifer found me sitting in the backyard at 2 in the morning, staring at the pool. "We're going to be okay," she said, sitting next to me. "You don't know that." "No, but I know we're doing the right thing, and I know we're together. Whatever happens, we'll deal with it." I took her hand. "I'm sorry I got us into this." "You didn't get us into anything. A crazy HOA president got us into this. You're just refusing to let her walk all over us." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you for standing up to her." The hearing was held in a small courtroom with fluorescent lighting and uncomfortable wooden benches. Brenda arrived with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman named Patricia Vance who specialized in HOA law. Carol and Deanne were there too, apparently as witnesses. Judge Margaret Holbrook presided, a stern-looking woman in her 60s who had a reputation for no-nonsense rulings. She reviewed the case files for several minutes before addressing the room. "This is a preliminary hearing for Sunset Ridge HOA versus Harrison. I've reviewed the complaint and the response. Miss Vance, summarize the HOA's position." Patricia Vance stood. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of a homeowner repeatedly refusing to comply with community covenants he agreed to when purchasing property in Sunset Ridge. Mr. Harrison has accumulated over $3,000 in violation fines, has stated his intention to disregard HOA authority, and is operating a commercial business in violation of residential zoning. The HOA seeks enforcement of its rules and collection of lawful fines." "Mr. Chen," Richard stood, "Your Honor, this is a case of HOA harassment and abuse of authority. Mrs. Patterson, the HOA president, has targeted my client with dozens of frivolous violations since the day he moved in. The so-called commercial business doesn't exist, Mr. Harrison is an IT consultant who works remotely for a corporation. The largest fine relates to a basketball hoop that predates the relevant HOA rule and is legally grandfathered under Arizona property law. We have documented evidence of this harassment pattern and are countersuing for damages." Judge Holbrook looked at both lawyers. "Let's address the commercial business allegation first. Miss Vance, what evidence does the HOA have?" "We have statements from Mrs. Patterson indicating regular traffic to and from the Harrison residence, including multiple vehicles and apparent customers." "Apparent customers? Do you have any actual evidence of commercial transactions, business signage, advertising, customer testimony?" Patricia Vance hesitated. "The nature of the business makes it difficult to document, Your Honor." "That's not an answer. Do you have evidence or not?" "We have circumstantial evidence that suggests, so no." "Mr. Chen, your response." Richard submitted a folder. "Your Honor, this includes Mr. Harrison's employment contract with his employer, 3 years of tax returns showing W-2 income only, and a letter from his employer confirming he is a full-time remote employee. There is no business because he is not operating a business." The judge reviewed the documents. "Miss Vance, unless you have contradicting evidence, this allegation appears to be without merit." "What else do you have?" The hearing continued for 90 minutes. Patricia Vance presented the list of violations and argued that HOA rules were binding and enforceable. Richard countered each one, showing that most were either incorrectly applied, contradicted by state law, or part of a harassment pattern. The basketball hoop discussion was particularly interesting. "The hoop was installed in 2019, Richard explained. "The HOA rule prohibiting permanent basketball hoops was implemented in 2021. Under Arizona property law, existing structures are grandfathered and cannot be forced to comply with new restrictions." "Mrs. Patterson," Judge Holbrook said, looking at Brenda who sat stiffly in the front row. "Were you aware of this when you issued the violation?" Brenda stood. "Your Honor, the rules apply to all residents regardless of when structures were installed. We can't have some homes with basketball hoops and others without. It's not fair." "That's not the question I asked. Were you aware that the hoop predated the rule?" Yes, but the rules are the rules." "The law is the law, Mrs. Patterson. And the law says you cannot enforce this particular rule against this particular structure." The judge made a note. "Anything else, Miss Vance?" By the end of the hearing, it was clear which way Judge Holbrook was leaning. She scheduled a full trial for January but made some preliminary rulings. The allegation of commercial business operation is dismissed for lack of evidence. The fine relating to the basketball hoop is vacated as it violates grandfathering provisions. I am reducing the remaining fines to $400 pending full review at trial, and I am ordering the HOA to cease issuing new violations against the Harrison property unless they relate to clear health and safety issues. Both parties will submit additional documentation before the trial date. We left the courthouse feeling cautiously optimistic. $400 was manageable, and the judge had clearly seen through Brenda's tactics. "That went well," Richard said as we stood in the parking lot. "The judge basically told them their case is weak. I wouldn't be surprised if they offer a settlement before trial." "What would a settlement look like?" "Probably dismissal of all fines in exchange for you agreeing to comply with all valid HOA rules going forward. Maybe an agreement that they'll leave you alone. It's a face-saving measure for them." "And if they don't offer a settlement?" "Then we go to trial, and based on today, I think we win. But you never know what a judge will do." Richard shook my hand. "I'll be in touch." Brenda was standing near her car, talking intensely on her phone. She glared at me as we walked past. I ignored her. Jennifer was waiting at home, having taken the day off work. "Well, we won the preliminary round. The judge threw out most of the fines and told them to stop harassing us." "Oh, thank God." She hugged me tightly. "So it's over?" "Not yet. There's still a trial in January, but Richard thinks they might settle." "I hope they do. I want this to be done." We had 3 weeks of peace. No new violations, no appearances by Brenda, no threatening letters. The boys started playing outside again, and neighbors began acknowledging us with cautious waves. It felt like maybe things would return to normal. Then I found the petition in my mailbox. "Petition for removal of undesirable residents" was printed at the top, in that same aggressive bold font Brenda loved. Below it was a paragraph explaining that the undersigned residents of Sunset Ridge requested the immediate eviction of the Harrison family for violation of community standards, disruption of neighborhood peace, and refusal to comply with HOA authority. And there were 3 signatures: Brenda Patterson, Tyler Patterson, Madison Patterson. She had asked her own kids to sign a petition to evict us. I stared at the paper, not sure whether to laugh or be horrified. This was beyond petty. This was pathological. I took a photo of the petition and texted it to Richard. His response came 5 minutes later. "This is harassment and possibly defamation. Document it and add it to our evidence file. This actually helps our case." Frank Morrison knocked on our door an hour later. "Did you get one too?" "One what?" "The petition. She delivered them to every house on the street." "At least that's what she told me when she showed up at my door." "Wait, she asked you to sign?" "Demanded is more accurate." "Said it was my responsibility as a concerned neighbor to help maintain community standards." Frank shook his head. "I told her to get lost." Apparently, almost everyone else did too, because the only signatures she got were from her kids. She made her kids sign a petition to evict us, 14 and 11 years old. "What kind of parent does that?" Frank's expression was disgusted. "Look, I've been talking to other residents like I mentioned. After the hearing, people are less afraid of her. The judge basically said she was abusing her authority. That gave people courage. How many people are willing to speak up? At least 15 households. That's almost half the neighborhood. We're planning to submit a vote of no confidence at the next board meeting. If we can remove her as president, we can start fixing this mess." "When's the next meeting?" "December 10th, 2 weeks. Frank paused. "She's going to fight this. You know that, right? This petition stunt is probably just the beginning." He was right. Over the next 2 weeks, Brenda launched a campaign of rumors and intimidation. She told neighbors that we were planning to sue the entire HOA, which would increase everyone's dues to pay for legal costs. She claimed we were dangerous and had threatened her physically. She said our presence was lowering property values and that several families were planning to move because of us. None of it was true, but some people believed her. Or at least, they were unsure enough to hesitate. Jennifer came home from the grocery store one afternoon looking upset. I ran into Carol in the produce section. She literally turned around and walked away when she saw me. Carol is Brenda's friend. Of course she's going to avoid you. It's just exhausting. I'm tired of being treated like we're the problem. She set down the grocery bags. What are we even fighting for anymore? A house in a neighborhood where people hate us? They don't hate us. They're scared of Brenda. There's a difference. I started unpacking groceries. Frank says a lot of people are ready to vote her out if we can just hold on a little longer. And if we can't. If she stays in power and makes our lives miserable forever, then we deal with it. But I'm not running away. This is our home. The December 10th HOA meeting had the largest turnout anyone could remember. Nearly 40 residents packed into the community center, filling every chair and lining the walls. The tension was palpable. Brenda sat at the front table with Carol and Deanne, her expression carefully neutral. She started the meeting as usual, reviewing the budget and discussing routine maintenance issues. But when she tried to move to new business, Frank stood up. "I have a motion," he said loudly. "You need to submit motions in writing beforehand," Brenda said, not looking at him. "I'm submitting it now. I move for a vote of no confidence in the current HOA board, specifically the president, based on abuse of authority and mismanagement of community affairs." The room erupted. Several people started talking at once. Brenda's face turned red. "That's out of order," she snapped. "No, it's not," Frank said calmly. "According to our HOA bylaws, any resident can call for a vote of no confidence with a second from another resident. I'm calling for one now." "I second the motion," called out Helen Zhang, who lived 2 streets over. "This is a witch hunt," Brenda said, standing up. "Mr. Harrison has obviously manipulated some of you into turning against your own board. He's been nothing but a problem since he moved here, and now he's trying to destroy our community from within." "I haven't talked to most of these people," I said from my seat near the back. "You're not allowed to speak unless recognized," Brenda shot back. "You don't get to make rules up as you go," Frank said. "We're calling for a vote. Under the bylaws, it has to happen." "Fine." Brenda's voice was cold. "Let's vote. Everyone in favor of this ridiculous no-confidence motion, raise your hands." Slowly, hands went up around the room. I counted them. 17, 18, 20, 23. Opposed. Brenda demanded, fewer hands this time. 11, 14, 15. Abstentions, 2 hands. Frank tallied the results. 23 in favor, 15 opposed, 2 abstentions. The motion passes. "This is illegal," Brenda said, her voice shaking with rage. "You can't just remove a sitting board." "Yes, we can. It's in the bylaws you're so fond of citing." Frank remained calm. "As of now, the board is dissolved. We'll need to hold emergency elections for a new board within 30 days. You'll all regret this," Brenda said, gathering her papers. "Every single one of you. This neighborhood is going to fall apart without proper leadership, and you'll come crawling back begging me to fix it." She stormed out, followed by Carol and Deanne. The remaining residents sat in stunned silence for a moment before everyone started talking at once. Frank took control of the meeting. "Okay, we need to elect a temporary board to handle business until the formal election. Nominations." The process took another hour, but by the end, we had a temporary board with Frank as interim president. The first order of business would be reviewing all outstanding violations and fines to ensure they were legitimate. As people filed out, several residents stopped to apologize to me and Jennifer. "I knew what she was doing wasn't right," said Tom Anderson, who lived across the street. "I just didn't want to get involved. I'm sorry." "I'm sorry too," echoed his wife Maria. "We should have stood up for you sooner." Similar conversations happened with half a dozen other neighbors. It felt like a weight lifting, but I knew Brenda wasn't done. She had lost her position, but she still lived in the neighborhood, and she was clearly not the type to accept defeat gracefully. The retaliation started within days. Someone slashed our tires while our cars were parked in the driveway. Someone else threw eggs at our house at 3 in the morning. Our mailbox was knocked over twice in 1 week. "We need to call the police," Jennifer said after the egging incident, "and tell them what? We don't have proof it was Brenda. Who else would it be?" "I know, but without evidence, the police can't do anything." I cleaned egg off the window. "I'm going to install security cameras, front and back. If someone comes on our property again, we'll have video." I bought a complete home security system the next day with cameras covering every angle of our property. The installation took most of Saturday, but when I was done, we had high-definition coverage of the entire house, driveway, and yard, with cloud storage for all footage. The cameras paid off 3 days later. At 11:30 on a Tuesday night, motion sensors triggered an alert on my phone. I grabbed the phone and opened the security app, watching in real time as 2 figures walked up our driveway. They were both wearing dark hoodies and jeans, but I recognized them immediately by their builds and the way they moved. Brenda and her son Tyler. They were carrying what looked like spray paint cans. I was already out the door before I consciously decided to move. "Hey," I shouted. They froze, then turned and ran. Tyler dropped his spray paint can, which rolled across the driveway. I chased them for about half a block, but they had too much of a head start. They disappeared around a corner and I stopped, breathing hard. When I got back to the house, Jennifer was standing in the doorway with her phone. "I called the police. Did you see who it was?" "Brenda and Tyler, it's all on video." "Are you sure?" "Positive. The cameras caught everything." The Gilbert police arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers, one older and one young, took our statement and reviewed the security footage. "That's definitely the Patterson residence they're running toward," the older officer said, watching the video. "And you're certain of their identities?" "Absolutely. I've seen them both dozens of times over the past 6 months. What's your relationship with Mrs. Patterson?" I explained the entire situation, from the HOA harassment to the lawsuit to the vote of no confidence. The officers took notes and asked follow-up questions. "So there's been an ongoing dispute between you and the former HOA president," the younger officer summarized. "Yes, but that doesn't give her the right to vandalize my property." "No, it doesn't." The older officer closed his notebook. "We'll go talk to Mrs. Patterson and her son. With the video evidence, we have probable cause. Do you want to press charges?" "Yes." "Even if it means charges against the minor son as well?" I hesitated. Tyler was only 14, and I suspected Brenda had dragged him into this, but I also couldn't let this behavior continue. "Yes, press charges." We watched from our living room window as the police cruiser pulled up in front of Brenda's house. The officers knocked on the door. After a few minutes, the door opened, and we could see animated conversation, though we couldn't hear what was being said. 15 minutes later, both officers returned to our house. "Mrs. Patterson admits they were on your property, but claims she was attempting to document HOA violations and that you threatened them, which is why they ran," the older officer said. "That's absurd. The video shows them with spray paint. She says it was her son's spray paint that he was carrying home from a friend's house and dropped when you chased them." The officer's expression made it clear he didn't believe this story. However, we did find spray paint residue on her hands and her son's hands, which is consistent with recent use. We also found additional cans in their garage. "So you're arresting them?" "We're issuing citations for trespassing and attempted vandalism, given Mrs. Patterson's lack of criminal history, she'll likely receive probation. The son will go through juvenile court. They've both been warned that any further contact with your property or family will result in immediate arrest. It wasn't as satisfying as I had hoped, but it was something. Official police documentation of Brenda's harassment and a legal order to stay away from us. What about the other incidents? The slashed tires, the eggs, the knocked-over mailbox. Without video evidence, we can't connect those to Mrs. Patterson. But if anything else happens, you'll have the cameras running and we'll have more to work with. The officer handed me a case number. Keep this for your records, and if she violates the no-contact order, call immediately. After the police left, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. We had evidence now, we had police involvement, but Brenda had also proven she was willing to commit crimes to harass us. "Do you think she'll stop?" Jennifer asked. "I don't know. But at least we're protected now." The security cameras recorded 2 more incidents over the next week. Both times, Brenda walked past our house slowly, staring at our property, clearly visible on camera. She never stepped onto our property or did anything overtly threatening, but the message was clear: I'm still watching. I sent the footage to the police. They said it didn't violate the no-contact order since she was on a public sidewalk, but they would document it. Meanwhile, the lawsuit was still pending. Richard called with news in mid-December. The HOA's lawyer wants to settle. Given the vote of no confidence and the criminal charges, they know their case is falling apart. They're offering to dismiss all claims and all fines in exchange for you dismissing your counterclaim. What about compensation for everything we've been through? Legal fees, stress, harassment. Your counterclaim is for damages, but honestly, those cases are hard to win. You'd have to prove quantifiable financial losses, and most of what you've experienced is emotional distress, which Arizona courts are reluctant to award without extreme circumstances. Richard paused. My professional advice is to take the settlement. You walk away clean, no fines, no liens, no ongoing litigation. And with Brenda off the board, you won't have the same problems going forward. She still lives here. She's still going to be a problem. Maybe, but without HOA authority, she can't fine you or threaten your property. She's just another neighbor you don't like. And if she crosses legal lines again, you have documentation and police involvement. I discussed it with Jennifer that evening. What do you think? I think I want this to be over, she said. I want our lives back. I want the boys to be able to play outside without worrying about some crazy woman calling the police or starting rumors. If settling makes that happen, then let's settle. Okay, I'll tell Richard to accept. The settlement was finalized 3 days before Christmas. All claims dismissed, all fines vacated, legal costs split between parties. It was anticlimactic after months of stress and conflict, but it was done. The new HOA board, with Frank as president, reviewed all existing violations throughout the community and dismissed dozens of petty fines that Brenda had issued over the years. Several neighbors who had been quietly suffering under her rules suddenly felt free to put up decorations, park their cars normally, and let their kids play without fear of citation. The neighborhood transformed. People started talking to each other again. Kids played together. The community Christmas party in the clubhouse had twice the normal attendance, and the atmosphere was genuinely friendly for the first time since we had moved in. Brenda's house went dark around the same time. Literally, she closed her curtains and stopped coming outside. Her husband Dave, whom I had barely seen during the entire conflict, apparently worked long hours and had been mostly unaware of his wife's campaign against us. Neighbors reported that their marriage was strained following the criminal charges. Tyler and Madison stayed away from our kids, which was fine with me. I felt bad for them being caught in their mother's obsession, but I also couldn't forget that they had signed that ridiculous petition. The trial date came and went, dismissed due to settlement. Richard sent me a final bill which was painfully expensive but manageable. We had burned through a chunk of our savings, but we had kept our home. Life slowly returned to normal through January and February. I worked, Jennifer worked, the boys went to school and played with their friends. We used our pool even in winter because Arizona winters are mild. We put up Valentine's decorations without worrying about violation notices. The formal HOA election happened in late January. Frank was elected president with almost unanimous support. The new board implemented several reforms, including clearer violation procedures, an appeals process with actual teeth, and restrictions on how much authority any single board member could exercise. I was asked to serve on the board but declined. I had spent enough time dealing with HOA politics. In early March, I was shooting baskets with Marcus and Devin on our infamous basketball hoop when Dave Patterson walked up. I tensed, unsure what to expect. "I owe you an apology," Dave said without preamble. I had no idea what Brenda was doing. I knew she took the HOA thing seriously, but I didn't realize she had gone completely off the rails. I work 60-hour weeks, and I just wasn't paying attention to what was happening at home. He looked genuinely distressed. The stuff with the spray paint dragging Tyler into her schemes, that crazy petition, I'm so sorry. Thanks for saying that, I replied, not sure what else to say. We're moving. I got a job transfer to Colorado, and honestly, we need a fresh start. Brenda needs help that she's not getting here. The stress of losing the HOA position, the criminal charges, the neighbors all turning against her, it's been bad. He paused. She's not a bad person. She just became obsessed with control and couldn't let go, and I should have noticed and done something before it got this far. I appreciate you telling me this. And for what it's worth, I hope things get better for your family. I hope so too. We're moving at the end of the month. Dave extended his hand. Good luck. I shook it. You too. The Patterson house went on the market 2 weeks later. Brenda apparently stayed inside almost constantly during the selling process, avoiding any contact with neighbors. The house sold quickly, helped by the improving neighborhood atmosphere under the new HOA board. On moving day in late March, I watched from our front porch as the moving truck was loaded. Brenda emerged briefly, walking to her car without looking around. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished. Tyler and Madison loaded boxes with the movers, and I caught Tyler glancing toward our house once with an unreadable expression. Then they were gone. 3 cars following the moving truck out of the Sunset Ridge community. Jennifer came out and stood beside me. How do you feel? Relieved mostly, a little sad maybe. Sad. She destroyed her own life over a basketball hoop and some petty rules. She drove away her neighbors, damaged her reputation, got criminal charges, and now has to move her whole family to a different state. And for what? Because she couldn't handle someone saying no to her. That's not on you, she made her own choices. I know, but it's still sad. Frank called that evening. Hey, I heard the Pattersons moved out today. Yeah, this afternoon. Good riddance. Look, I wanted to thank you. If you hadn't stood up to Brenda, she'd still be running this place like a dictator. Most of us were too comfortable or too scared to fight back. You saved this neighborhood. I just wanted to keep my basketball hoop, Frank laughed. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person willing to say enough is enough. Anyway, we're having a neighborhood barbecue next weekend to celebrate spring. You should come, bring the family. We'll be there. The barbecue was exactly what the neighborhood needed. 50 people showed up, grilling burgers and hot dogs, kids running around playing, adults actually talking to each other like normal human beings. Several people thanked us for standing up to Brenda. Others apologized for not supporting us sooner. "You're heroes," Helen Zhang said, slightly drunk on wine. "You fought the dragon and won." "We just wanted to live in peace," I said. "That's all any of us want, and now we can." Later, as Jennifer and I sat watching Marcus and Devin play volleyball with a group of other kids, she leaned against me. "This is what I imagined when we bought this house," she said. "Community, neighbors, belonging. Yeah, it just took a little longer than expected. Was it worth it?" I thought about everything we had been through. The stress, the legal fees, the harassment, the fear, the exhaustion. But I also looked around at the neighborhood that had finally become what it was supposed to be. Yeah, it was worth it. Spring turned to summer. We hosted pool parties, we made friends. Marcus and Devin thrived. The new HOA board functioned smoothly, handling actual issues like street repairs and landscaping maintenance without manufactured drama. I sometimes thought about Brenda and wondered how she was doing in Colorado, whether she had found peace or just found new neighbors to harass. Whether she understood that her behavior had been irrational and destructive, or whether she still blamed everyone else for her problems. Mostly, though, I didn't think about her at all. One Saturday morning in June, I was outside washing my car when a family drove slowly down the street, clearly house hunting. They stopped in front of what used to be the Patterson house. The husband rolled down his window. "Excuse me, do you live here?" "Yeah, 3 houses down." "What's the neighborhood like? We're thinking about buying that house." He gestured toward the former Patterson residence. "It's great. Really friendly neighbors, good HOA board, safe for kids. You'd like it here." "What about the HOA? We've had bad experiences before." "Are they reasonable?" I smiled. "They're very reasonable. Took a little while to get there, but yeah, they're good now." "That's great to hear, thanks." They drove off, and I returned to washing my car. The basketball hoop stood in the driveway behind me, permanent and unapologetic. That ridiculous petition was still in my files somewhere, framed as a reminder. 3 signatures: Brenda Patterson, Tyler Patterson, Madison Patterson. A testament to how far someone could fall when they chose pettiness over humanity, control over community, rules over relationships. But it was also a reminder that standing up to bullies matters. That small acts of resistance can cascade into larger change. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply refuse to back down when you know you are right. The Sunset Ridge community moved forward without Brenda Patterson. Kids played in their yards, neighbors chatted over fences. The HOA enforced reasonable rules reasonably. Life was normal, peaceful, and exactly what a neighborhood should be. And every time I played basketball with my sons on that hoop that started everything, I was reminded that some battles are worth fighting, no matter how petty they seem at first. Because it was never really about the basketball hoop. It was about refusing to let someone take away your right to live in your own home on your own terms. We had won that right. And we would never take it for granted again. The boys were getting taller now, their shots more accurate, their games more competitive. They played without fear of violation notices or angry neighbors with cameras. They played because they could, because this was their home, because they were free. And watching them, I knew that every moment of stress and struggle had been worth it, because home is not just a place you live. It is a place where you belong, where you are free to be yourself, where petty tyrants cannot reach you. We had fought for that, and we had won. The summer sun beat down on Gilbert, Arizona, and in the Sunset Ridge community, life was good. The nightmare was over. The neighborhood was healed. And somewhere in Colorado, Brenda Patterson was someone else's problem now. I finished washing the car and went inside where Jennifer was making lunch. Marcus and Devin were arguing about something trivial in the living room, their voices loud and happy and completely unafraid. This was peace. This was victory. This was home. And no HOA Karen with a petition signed by her own kids could ever take that away from us again.